Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another video on Starseed Academy. My name is Jenny, and so today I actually want to talk with you about my Sedona experience that I've had. I'm going to break this up into two videos because I had like a lot of personal experiences that I thought would be really interesting to share with you. A lot of the shifts and the things that I was going through as I was experiencing the vortexes there. And then in the second video, which will be next week, I'd like to do some channeling for some of the different sacred sites that are there, because there is definitely like a very ancient energy, like older than even, the Hopi prophecies and the natives, the Aboriginal people of that area. It feels even older than that. It actually really reminded me of like an Egyptian energy. So there's a couple of areas that really stood out. My husband and I both brought back some like rocks from those ancient sites so that I could actually like hold on to them and channel for you some of the history of that site, or whatever really wants to come through, maybe some messages from those areas. So if you have an interest in sacred sites or specifically in Sedona, then you'll definitely want to check out next week's video as well. But in this week, I want to talk about some of my personal experiences with it. I did have like some really big shifts happening, especially regarding like past life, past parallel life, regressions and things coming up to be healed. And it was all very like just a really big energy, felt very dramatic when I was there. And it's just really interesting that our environments, the energy of the place that you're in can affect you so much. And I really want to talk about that, and I want to talk about how you can be called to a place and experience that calling, and maybe talk about what that might feel like for you, because it's really important to listen to those soul nudges. I know we talk about soul nudges a lot on this channel, but like if you are being nudged to go visit a certain place or even go live in a certain place, there's a reason, and it's such a big reason. And this is like the story that I'm going to tell you is like the perfect example of that. Now, just before we jump fully in, I do want to invite you all to think about joining the Starseed Academy membership, because our events are just, I feel like the membership is just getting more and more advanced and more like streamlined, ever since we got off of Facebook and now we have our own app. It's just a really beautiful experience. To give you an idea of the April events, I just have them here in front of me in my notes. So April's events, if you would like to join, are understanding real psychic attacks and how to protect yourself. Really, really important information. The second event for April is going to be honoring the shadow within. And the third event is going to be a group reading, interpreting your shadows. So you can see that there's definitely a theme for April. That's what wanted to come through. I'm always channeling what's coming through for the membership group. And this was like a really important theme this month. And I think it's really funny that all of a sudden, not everybody, but all of a sudden you'll see like a lot of people in the spiritual community start talking about the same thing. And it's not that everybody's out there copying each other, I don't think. It's truly that we are all on the same wavelength. A lot of spiritual entrepreneurs and different spiritual leaders and teachers tend to ask, their guides or God source or, these higher dimensional beings and things, what does the collective need help with right now? And that's why all of a sudden I see everyone talking about these things. As soon as I made April's events up and I felt that that was the theme, that honoring our shadows and understanding how shadow and light works together, and psychic attacks and all the above, all of a sudden now everywhere I go online, I feel like that's what I'm seeing. Like people are talking a lot more suddenly about psychic attacks and the shadow within and all these things. And it's like really, really important. I'm really happy to see that, because it's really harmful to just gloss over all of that, because then that leaves people feeling alone, and like what they're going through, no one else is going through. I mean, we're all going through these kinds of things. So definitely check out the link in the description for the Starseed Academy membership. We do 3 live events every month. Those are the events for April. May will be different theme. Every month, though, there is a group reading. Not to mention, you get access to a resource library that I have created personally of over 100. We're probably closing on 150 now. video resources. So workshops, think like spiritual business workshops, psychic workshops, activations, healings, lessons, astral journeys. Like we've worked with the Blu-ray beings, the Andromedans, the Galactic Federation of Light, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians. We've done so much. We've been to so many places. Like there's so much more still to discover. So okay, I'll leave it at that and stop going on about how much I love the membership. But definitely, if you're wanting to work with me and you're not sure where to start, it's a wonderful place to start because we get to hang out like 3 times a month, which is super cool. Okay, so let's jump into today's video talking about Sedona. So I would say that for me, I was Sedona called. Like Sedona was actually calling me to it. And it started a long time ago, you guys. Like I would say even I tried to do the math on it. It was like 14 years ago when the first thing happened. Okay, so 14 years ago, I was actually living life as this professional singer. I had made an album. I was doing Broadway shows. I was doing contests. I mean, I was doing quite a few different things. I was actually teaching also singing. And so that's what I thought was it for me. Like, obviously that it brought me a lot of joy. I'm still very, very passionate about singing and music. And I really truly believe that that was my path, and then something intervened. Okay. So I had this energy healing done, and I don't think I had even had anything like that done before. I think it might have been my first experience, to be honest with you. And it was this really powerful Reiki healer. And I went somewhere during that. So, I mean, I don't know. Does that resonate? Have you had anyone here that maybe has had an energy healing, like whether that's Reiki or some other kind of energy healing? Do you find like it actually creates like such a strong spiritual experience within you that you almost feel like you go somewhere? Like I was off on some kind of like astral journey and I was having this incredible, very visual experience. And I had this vision. I had a vision of myself with 2 paths ahead of me. Okay, like I could go in either direction. On one path, I continued on the way that I was going with this music career. I continued being a singer with my singing career, experiencing a lot of success. But in that vision, I actually looked pretty like strung out a little bit, like burnt out, lonely, tired, just I could feel it. I could see it in my face. It was interesting because there was still success in that path. And if I had have chosen that timeline, I know that I would have been, had the success that I was looking for, especially I had such a passion for Broadway and was planning on moving. At the time I lived in Canada, I was planning on moving like downtown Toronto to really get into that whole scene heavier. But yeah, I just like the energy, the look on my face, the feeling I was getting was actually not so happy, right? Like you can be successful and still not be happy. And then the second path that I saw for myself was a vision of me writing a book in a desert somewhere. At the time, I didn't know it was Sedona. It would just look like a desert, and I was writing this book. But in that vision, I was glowing, like radiating this peace from within, so like fulfilled, content, happy, more than content, like just very, very deep. Like I had a deep purpose and fulfillment within me. And I knew when I saw that vision that that was a spiritual path and that I was being given these 2 options and almost being shown like a glimpse of what was what there was for me. And of course we have free will and it was totally up to me. And I had that choice. So both paths I felt like I would be in a way helping people. Like as a musician, you can still, music helps people through a lot. And I was writing my own lyrics and songs and everything. So I was definitely putting a lot of really like spiritual messaging into my music at the time. I remember even singing like a song about ascension. Like there was a lot that I was fitting into that. So I mean, I do think that I could have helped people on either path, but only one path looked serene, like serene and healed. And so something inside me came to life with that vision, and it started pulling me away from the music industry, even though I really fought that at first. I really clung to that, thinking that that was the only thing that could make me happy. Even though I fought it, deeper inside than that, like soul deep inside, I craved peace. And the path I was on was not really the most peaceful path. I craved peace and I craved serenity and I craved quiet. I craved quiet. I think I knew then. I hadn't done it 14 years ago. I had not done the healing to the level I've done it now. And I needed to heal. I really needed to heal from my childhood, and my young adulthood was, so traumatic, so many experiences and so much abuse. And I think if I had just kept going on the path I was, I wouldn't be the person I am today, definitely. And I wouldn't be to this level of healed to the point of like coming back into the love frequency. And that feels so beautiful to be able to say now. Being able to look back and then see how far you've come. It's truly just amazing. So after that vision, I started seeing Sedona everywhere. I started seeing it was everywhere. I was following a couple of this was a long time ago, but I was following some things on YouTube for spiritual awakenings. And I started seeing Sedona everywhere. It was like everyone that I respected in that spiritual community was talking about how they traveled to Sedona, and they were talking about these vortexes, and they were talking about the incredible experiences that they had. And I was totally riveted by their stories. And I promised myself that I was going to make it there someday. And when something is calling you, if a place is calling to you, it shows up everywhere. It shows up in your dreams. It shows up in visions. It shows up through the people that you respect. It shows up like lots of coincidences, lots of those signs, lots of that feeling like, ooh, that's for me. Ooh, that's a sign. So if you're receiving that for a certain place, really do your best to get that at the top of your bucket list and get there, because there's something there for you. Just speaking of that, I wasn't planning on sharing this, but I think it fits in well, is I know where I'm being called to right now. And this has been going on for years. I just haven't been able to get there. It's called Easter Island. And I think the technical name is Rapa Nui Island. It's the one with the big heads, the statues, all in rows. So quite a few years ago now, I had this dream that I've dreamt about that island more than once, okay, which is already weird. I should have no connection to it, but I do. There's something like a spiritual or a soul connection there. I don't know what it is. And I had this dream that the big heads, hopefully you know what I mean by Easter Island. I'm sure you do. They're these big, tall heads all in a row, just the heads, right? But I had this dream that head, arms came up out of the ground and it pushed itself up, and it was a whole stone man. It was a man made out of stone. And it was walking around actually quite sprightly. I remember it was dancing and walking around, had this kind of change to have this weird big beard. And as it was talking to me in the dream, and it was saying, come to Mecca, come to Mecca. And I'm like, what the heck is Mecca? And then I remember it said it again, and the words came out of its mouth like letters, Mecca, come to Mecca. And I remember being so lucid in this dream, and I was like, what the heck? What the is going on? But it was it was a powerful dream, and even though it sounds kind of silly. So what I did is of course, immediately, as soon as I wake up, research, what is Mecca. And although there is a place on the earth called Mecca, I knew that's not what it meant. Mecca has a deeper meaning. Mecca means a spiritual pilgrimage. And so I was being called to go on a spiritual pilgrimage or a spiritual journey to Easter Island. So that's what I mean if a place is calling you. So I would love to know. I love your comments always. I would love to know who here is being called somewhere. How do you know? What are the signs? Because that is definitely a sign. So for me, that is on the top of my bucket list. I mean, it's somewhere I really want to get to in the next, I don't know, as soon as possible, really. But for now, let's go back to Sedona. So Sedona, I mean, I started planning trips to Sedona many years ago, and they continued to fall through. And it's when you're being called somewhere, everything has to be divinely orchestrated for the thing that's calling you to be available. You need to be at a level of frequency where you can receive it. It all just needs to be so perfect. So I can look back now and see why none of those trips worked out. I wasn't with the right partner. I wasn't in the right, emotional state. I wasn't as healed as I needed to be. To receive what I had to receive, I had to be at a certain level, and I probably just wasn't there yet. So as much as Sedona was calling and I was making plans, they just kept falling through. So finally, last month in March, for a 1-year anniversary celebration with my husband, it all clicked into place and we finally got to Sedona. Now, he also felt really called to Sedona in his own ways. And I remember it being something that we talked about early on when we first met each other. So that's also really interesting that we were both kind of called to that. So what first started happening for me in Sedona was, you know what? Actually, the first thing that happened, I'm going to share a crystal with you. I have 3 crystals here that have been really, really meaningful. Oh, I just saw an orb. Did you see that? Whoop, went right by. Okay, so the first, that distracted me. The first crystal that I was called to, again, you can be called to crystals. Okay, so the first one that called to me was, there was a store in Sedona. I actually can't remember which one it was, or I would tell you. I think it might have been Crystal Magic. I think that's actually, yes, that's what it was called. It was called Crystal Magic. And it was beautiful. And there was an Egyptian section. And I went and I'm always kind of drawn to that kind of stuff. And this clear quartz was like on a shelf in the Egyptian section. Sorry, my ring light's making it look awful. Oh, there we go. You can see. So see this like little bit of that brown right there? Can you see that? Hopefully you can pick it up. See, it's totally clear, a clear crystal, except for it has just this little brown touch at the very top. That little brown touch is kind of like a bit of a copper deposit. And I think that's what makes this so powerful, because I think copper is like a real amplifier, but it's also the shape. The shape is like incredible. Having something that is kind of rounded and fits perfectly in my hand, and I really always choose crystals with a point. I don't know what it was about this, and there's also a little bit of a rainbow inclusion in it. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but let's give it a shot. I have to hold it a certain way. Oh, see right there? Right at the top, right there. See the rainbow? Okay. So anyway, I put that in my hand and I felt lots of like tingles in my palm. And I felt like I was going spiraling up. I was like, ooh, okay, this is high frequency if it feels like a spiral up. If you ever go to hold a crystal and you feel like a spiral down, that's not so great. You want to be going upwards. So anyway, I just loved that crystal. And it said it was from Brazil. And I asked the lady, why is it in the Egyptian thing? And she's like, I don't know. It's not Egyptian. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's calling to me. I got that. And then I like to sleep with crystals, like at night, hold them in my left receiving hand. Your non-dominant hand is your receiving hand. So I started like sleeping and holding on to that. And I had the most insane dreams in Sedona, like the most vivid, meaningful, filled with like deep meanings. And you can see on my Instagram page, there is a highlight like reel now that you can click on and kind of read through some of the stuff, because I did try to document it. The very first night, in Sedona, like would it be it would be the first night, because we got there early on in the day when we first got there. So we did some shopping and then I got that crystal. And then that night I had this dream that Archangel Michael was walking beside me and we were going through the dark. It was like a lot of like dark tunnels and stuff. And I was leading a younger version of myself with the help of Archangel Michael through these dark tangled pathways back into the light. So we were like going up. So that was definitely something that happened. You know, that's more than a dream. Something is definitely happening. And I had a lot of other really interesting dreams there too. But I think it'll make this video way too long. So go and check out the highlight reel on Instagram if you want to know more about that. So that's kind of like the first big thing, is that I noticed my dreams were very different. And then we were planning on hiking quite a few of the vortexes. And again, divine orchestration. I actually was like super set on Cathedral Rock. I was like, we need to go to Cathedral Rock. I picked an Airbnb near it. It's the divine feminine vortex. That's the energy I felt like I really needed the most. So everything to me was about Cathedral Rock. And like the very first thing I wanted to do, obviously, was that. We tried to get to Cathedral Rock like 3 times and were shut down. Like the parking lot was full. There was no access, all these things. And I'm like, disappointed, but then, you kind of remember, oh, okay, wait a minute, divine orchestration, I'm being guided, what's going on? So we actually ended up climbing Bell Rock. which I don't know necessarily that I was even like excited about this, but that's where the big thing happened. Okay. So Bell Rock is a vortex of feminine and masculine energy. So it's not just one, it's both. So it has strong feminine and masculine energy, almost like swirling in a vortex, like coming together. They do turn in different directions, as I'm going to be talking a little bit more about spinning energy in a bit. But it's supposed to be both, and so it's supposed to help you balance the two. So maybe that was what I needed more. You could definitely feel it, you guys. Like, it's the real deal when people talk about vortexes. um I just saw another giant orb. That's so fun. Sedona is real. I can't speak to any other ones because I haven't been to them, but it's real. It's definitely real. It was really, really powerful, really powerful. So we were climbing Bell Rock, which is extremely steep. Like, it is a mountain, and a lot of it's like straight up, it feels. And there's no, when you get to the base of it, like there's a path to it, but then when you get there, it's not like they've built, like you actually are climbing this mountain. Um, and it's quite steep, and then there's a level, and then it's steep, and then there's a level, and so you really do have to like scrabble up it with your, on your hands and knees with your, like it's not pretty. And it was definitely challenging. So you're finding these footholds, you're climbing from platform to platform, and it's definitely an adrenaline rush. However, there was something going on in my body that was way beyond what the situation called for. Yes, it's an adrenaline rush, but I was having a level of panic and anxiety that did not fit the situation at all. In fact, I kept having these flashes of death. Like, I'm going to die. Like, that's not like me to just go so crazy and panic. It was like, I felt like I was going to die. I felt like I kept feeling like I was falling, like backwards or forwards. And I don't know what was going on. And I really couldn't like explain it. It just wasn't, like I said, it didn't match the situation. It was something a lot bigger going on almost within me. I could feel it rising up, this really weird panic, this really weird anxiety, like raw. It felt very raw coming from deep within me. And I knew that it was something, you know what I mean? Like, I knew it was a part of me that was like, like a witch wound or a past life or something that was really rising up that needed to, that was being triggered. I was being triggered. That's what it was, right? So when I got as high as I could without like totally giving up, which was still pretty good, I found this rock to sit on, to calm down and meditate on. And I just sat there, and there were these waves of pins and needles going through my body. Not a good feeling, not good pins and needles, like very scary. Like maybe how you feel when you're the most panicked you've ever been. Like, if you've had a panic like attack or anxiety attack, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but it feels like it can start at your toes and then wave up your body. Like, you can't breathe, your whole body is just having this insane reaction. So I had to sit down, and like, I decided I would just try to meditate, because I still had to try to climb back down eventually too. And I kept whispering to myself, or this part of me that was like waking up or something, it truly felt like something was stirring deep within me. And so I just kept telling whoever this part of me was, I kept saying, you are safe, you are stable, you are fierce as a mountain lion, like as in, you've got this mountain, you're owning it, you're safe, you are grounded, you are strong. And I was really just trying to calm myself down so that I could be okay. So that night, so we did the hike, had this huge, weird, awful experience. But when something is like, it was more than just, oh, I'm scared of this mountain. It was deep. It was coming from a very deep place. So that night, as I was trying to fall asleep, I started spinning inside my body. So if you Google this, people talk about it. I mean, I don't think people talk about it enough, because it happens to me like whenever I'm going through something like weird, like something rising up within me. So anyway, the way that it feels is your body is actually still. You're like, I'm laying there, everything's still, but inside I'm spinning. And I feel like the inside, not the still human on the outside, I feel like I'm actually like turning, as in like my whole, like I'm getting dizzy as if someone's spinning me. Like, if you were to close your eyes and how do I describe this? If my physical eyes were closed, but within I was thinking about it being like I still had eyes and I could see, even my sight, like every part of me except for the outer shell was spinning, right? So it was really uncomfortable. And it was going clockwise. Okay, so that's for me, it's this way. It was going clockwise. And I know now not to fight these kinds of things. And I really do. I've gotten to a place to be able to trust. So I started taking deep breaths. I kept my eyes closed and I allowed it to just play out. And it got faster and faster and faster and faster. And it was really intense. And then it paused. Okay, so it was going clockwise, which is the masculine energy. And remember, I was on this bell rock vortex, which is spinning energy. In fact, the energy there is so intense that the trees are all twisted. And again, you can check out my Instagram highlight to see that, because the energy is spinning and you go in there, there's like a lot of juniper trees there, and all the trunks are like weirdly spun, like all just around that area of the vortex. It's really weird. So anyway, it's real. And so that's what's happening to me now. Like I spent hours all day in this vortex energy. We were there a long time. We were checking out all the different areas of it. And then I come home and that happens. So it's very, very connected. It couldn't be something else. So I was spinning in this masculine direction. Then it slowed down, paused for a second, and then it tried to spin in the opposite direction, right? Like it was strong. Masculine energy in me is quite strong and clear. And so that's why I wanted to go to Cathedral Rock, because I know that I need help more so with the feminine energy. And anyway, so then it pauses, and then inside my body, I feel my soul trying to spin the opposite direction, counterclockwise, which is feminine. And it, for whatever reason, it could just not make a full rotation. I felt more like I was going forwards and backwards, and I was trying to, but I couldn't quite, and I just couldn't make it. So I even remember trying to help myself. Like I was laying there and I was like, I feel like it'll be better if I can complete, like what happened on the one side felt good. I need to make it happen over here to be balanced. So in my mind, I'm trying to like without actually moving, I'm being still in bed, but I'm trying to like intentionally, I don't know, spin myself. And it wasn't happening. And I knew something was blocking me. So the next day, in the Airbnb, I woke up and I felt really off. Like I just didn't feel good. I felt emotionally weird. I felt, I don't know, like, when you just feel off, like I'm not in a good place and I don't even know why. I just don't feel good. So I decided to have a salt bath to clear and relax me. And I poured this really nice, bubble bath with salts. And I just realized I forgot to tell you guys a part of the story that might be important. So bear with me while I rewind for a sec. It's another bath that I took. I forgot to tell you that right before Bell Rock, I found at one of the shops, like when we first got there, I found at the shops Moldavite bath salts. So if you've ever worked with Moldavite, it's no joke. It's the real deal. It will absolutely like purge from your life, your body, whatever, something that is ready to be healed, something that is ready to come to the surface, whatever. So I found these literally Moldavite bath salts, real Moldavite pieces in these bath salts, and I decided to get that, thinking that was a good idea. Like, you're already in Sedona, girl. You're already about to like spend hours on a vortex. Do you really think you need to amplify it to this degree? But I was like, I'm here, I'm in Sedona, I want to get all that I can out of it. So, and I know how intense Moldavite is, and I warn people about it all the time, like, go slowly, like it's not a joke. But yeah, so here I was, like, before Bell Rock, I had this Moldavite salt bath. Nothing really happened, but I remember setting an intention in that bath. Please help me to align to the highest version of myself, whatever that means. Okay. Then we do the Bell Rock experience. Then we have the spinning that night. So just to say, the reason I rewound is just to let you know, maybe the Moldavite bath salts also helped to bring up what was about to happen. So anyway, so here I am having now a regular bath because I don't feel good after that whole experience. Yesterday was Bell Rock. Then I had a lot of like anxiety and panic the whole time. I tried to sleep. I'm spinning. I don't know what the frig is going on. So I decided to have this salt bath to like relax and clear me. And inside the bath, it starts again. This spinning. This time it goes right to the counterclockwise feminine direction. It doesn't even go to it knows that's good. Right away we go into what's this block. It's like my energy's trying to figure it out too. And so I could feel again the same thing happening. It's more of like it's going forward and back and it's not able to make a rotation. So I figure I can help this time. I'm awake and I'm sitting up, and so I sit up in the bath and I start moving the top of my body like in this counterclockwise direction to really force the energy to go around and around and around. And with each rotation that I did, something started building. Something very uncomfortable, like the feeling that you get right before you either pass out or puke, like, oh, like, uh-oh, I don't know what's about to happen, but it's not going to be good, like that scary uh-oh feeling. So I called in a quick sacred space. I called in with, which I do with the angels, and then I called in my higher self, like my highest human self, and I asked for help. I'm like, please help me. I'm trying to do the right thing. I know something's trying to come through. I don't feel good. It's scaring me. Like, please help me. So, and also as I was doing that, I asked for help. Please help me open my heart, because I could feel that the block felt like that's where it was stopping. Like it's rising, rising, rising. And then here's where it gets stuck. And I'm like, okay, I need to open my heart, right? I need to let this out. So I was like asking for help, opening my heart. And, honestly, I just started to feel like super sick, but I kept going, and something finally cracked like deep, deep within my heart. I just felt this like break, and I started sobbing like so intensely, that it was like the hurt your stomach kind of crying. It was so silent though. It was like this silent, gut wrenching sobbing, even a bit of screaming. It felt like was coming out from this such a deep place, like when you're just so in it that you're like, it's so silent, which was creepy, but like sobbing, screaming, crying, tears, the whole thing. And that went on for a long time. Like I was crying for quite a while, and I gave myself over to it. Just like I did with the spinning in bed, it's really important to allow yourself to surrender to the energy that needs to come up and be released. And you really need to trust that your body and your soul know what they're doing. So I surrendered, and this crying, this experience in the bath, I was in there for at least an hour, really going through it. Then I heard myself start to say, as in I heard myself say it. I wasn't really the one that was consciously saying this. It felt like hearing somebody else say it, which is also very weird. But I heard my voice starting to say in between these sobs, I'm alive, like, oh, I'm alive. And it was so sad. Like it just gives me chills just to even say it now. But it was like something or someone had awakened. And I knew that's what was trying to happen. I knew it from the moment I was on Bell Rock and having all these really out of place panic attacks and anxiety and the really bad pain and pins and needles in my body. Something was happening. And then, the spinning and then the bath and all the things. And something was trying to rise and wake up and kind of like crack through maybe some of the blocks that I had, like witch wounds or whatever. These things can create really big blocks. So again, I spent like an hour in there going through it. And then all of a sudden I just start sobbing. I start silently crying, screaming, and I hear myself say, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. So I sat in that bath for a while, and I meditated, and I asked for the information. Didn't really feel like it was coming from above. It was really more coming from within myself. And I asked this person inside of me, who are you? Like, what is happening? And so what I got, and I didn't get it all at once. I got a little bit that night in the bath, and then the next day and the next day, I got more information. I just kept returning within and placing my hands over my heart and asking this beautiful woman that had woken up within me, that I was just getting to know, are you okay? Tell me more. Who are you? And all these things. So, and this is what a soul retrieval feels like, or no, I mean, it is a soul retrieval, because that part of myself had been through such a trauma, which I'll tell you a little bit her life. She had been through such a trauma that she had turned off. And if anybody here has watched my Orion lifetime video, especially the second one. I did 3 videos. It was like a bit of a mini series on my Orion lifetime. I really talk a lot about soul retrieval in that video as well. This felt like that again. It feels like somebody wakes up in your body and it feels very separate than you for a while. Like it does take time to integrate, and it's a weird feeling. Okay, so it feels like someone else's consciousness inside. So for the next few days, I could feel her thoughts. I could feel her observations, I could feel her emotions, and they were somehow separate than mine, but inside me. And I remember feeling that way with a couple of my past life healing soul retrievals. They're kind of the same thing. When you experience great trauma, your pieces of your soul can splinter off from the rest. And I had to go to Sedona for whatever reason to reclaim this part of myself. Um, Not necessarily that the trauma happened in Sedona, because I don't really feel like that is the case, which would have made logical sense, but it was more that the energy vortex within Sedona was the push or whatever, the thing I needed to unlock this, like a key. And, you know, for soul retrieval, it's almost like calling a part of yourself home, or if it doesn't feel like it's been splintered off, if it doesn't feel like it's left and you're calling it back in, sometimes it's just gone dormant, like a light switch being turned off, and then it awakens within you. And that's kind of what this felt like. Like it was maybe always in there, but it was dark. It was dark. It was offline for sure. Okay, so what I learned about this beautiful woman that woke up within me, that I then lived with for quite a few days, as in somebody else living in my body with me, which is like very different feeling. Like it's not for the faint of heart, especially when they are somebody that's been through extreme trauma and you are trying to see them through it and help them to grieve, help them to feel safe. Like I really feel like she was my responsibility, obviously, right? Her name was Jura, Jura, and she lived on Earth many years ago in a time and a place when it was not safe to be a beautiful, independent woman. And so she was, the vision that I had of her, which is, the year that she died, was she was like 28 years old. And she told me that she said Kosovo, which is where she lived. And she showed me that her mother had passed. And so she had younger sisters. So she had 2 younger sisters, I think. And then it was her and her father. And she was quite a bit older than her sisters. So she took up the role of being like the mother of the household. She took care of her sisters. She helped her father in his work. She was really very family oriented and happy to do that. But at that time, it was expected that there would be arranged marriages and that she would maybe sold almost like by her father to someone through like dowries and things like that. But her father was a good, gentle, sweet man. And, which is nice to see in a lifetime that I've had like a father that really understands me and sees me. And he loved her, and he knew that her independence was extremely important to her, and that she did not want to get married unless it was for love, and that she was very independent, and that she was very business minded and really enjoyed helping him with his business. He was a fish marketer, monger, fish, like he fished and then sold the fish in the market. And she showed me baskets and fishing and helping her father and working the little stand where they sold things, and that she was so kind. She was beautiful and she was kind. And so a lot of women and different people actually chose her fish stand to buy fish from over some of the others because of her kindness and because of her fairness, and because she cared about people and remembered them and asked them how their lives were. Like she was just very sweet, and people had a real issue with her, like men in that village or whatever it would have been. It felt maybe a bit bigger than a village, more like a bit of a small city, but there were these people that were watching her from the background that were like thinking, that she was wrong, that she should be married, she shouldn't be working. She was stealing people's business from the men, their fish stands. I guess fishing was maybe like a really big deal back then. Seemed like a lot of business. And so there was a lot of like, I don't know if jealousy is the right word, or just competition, or them wanting to stop her from doing all the things that she was doing. But her father was so kind and he didn't force a marriage on her, and she didn't want that. And so I saw that she, had this really independent life. Um, Unfortunately, a group of men, like, I saw, like, she was on a walk, I don't know, maybe going to or from somewhere when she was going home, and she was alone, and they cornered her. And oh, I'm getting weird feelings even just trying to talk about it. It's like she always like perks up within whenever I try to talk about what happened. But um, you know, they cornered her, and there was a few of them. It felt like at least 3 or 4 men, and so super unfair. Um, and they tried to, you know, um, like, just be sexually inappropriate or abusive towards her, try to force her to do things, like try to drag her away and all of this, and she was just not about it. She was, she would rather fight to her death than comply to something like that, because she was an unmarried woman at that age, and she was beautiful, and she was doing things that were inappropriate, working. Maybe women weren't supposed to work back then, I don't really know. I have been trying to look up stuff about Kosovo and the women and the culture there, and I am seeing some of the stuff, that fishing was like a really big part, that actually they overfished to the point where they had to stop people, so it makes sense that I would see such a strong fishing industry there. Um, and that definitely that women were expected to be married young, and that's all, they would be doing is, working inside the home, and so it does make sense that she would stand out for sure. But these group of men, they violently threw her from a cliff for not complying with their demands and desires or living the way that they thought that she should live. And she died that day, but she lives on inside of me. And so there's definitely a lot of things for me to integrate and more for me to get to know about her life. Um, I looked up her name, and I saw a connection between that name shows up in quite a few countries. And I saw that it was a Croatian name, and that there was quite a few Croatian people in Kosovo. So I don't know if she's Croatian. The reason that stood out a little bit to me is that when I had, because I don't know a lot about my family history, so I had like a DNA test done quite a few years ago, and Croatia showed up as one of the pieces for me, like a DNA piece for me. So that would make maybe sense in my ancestry if it was Croatian. But Kosovo fit a lot of the other parts of the story. So, and I heard her say it very clearly multiple times. So I do believe that is where this all happened. And then I wasn't going to share this either, but I do feel like it's an interesting, kind of beautiful ending. It might be TMI, too much information, but I'm going to go there right now. So a few days later, what I just described to you took me out, okay? And I let myself grieve for a whole day, as in I didn't leave the Airbnb, which, I don't know if I could have let myself do that a few years ago if I wasn't healed to the point that I am. I've been doing a lot of healing and a lot of work with the subconscious coach with the hypnotherapy and stuff. I think before I would have made myself, because I paid the money to be in Sedona, I would have made myself get out of the Airbnb and go do something, go do a hike, go do this, go do that. But because I've gotten to a place where I make myself the priority now, I am the priority above my business, above money, above anything. I was like, no, I need to stay inside. I need to just like be here right now. And so I spent a whole day just like in bed or in bath or reading or audiobooks or just being gentle with myself. And that was really important. And then the next day, so that was the first day of grieving. And then the second day of grieving, I did leave the house, but I was empty. Like there was no light in my eyes. I was just empty. And I remember just like walking around looking at stuff. Like again, we planned to go to Cathedral Rock that day, and it didn't work out. I wasn't ready for it. Because Cathedral Rock was going to be another big thing. It was like, you girl, take a minute. So again, the universe stopped that from happening, so that I just walked around shops and shopped for a bit, went out for dinner, and just a little bit of an easier day, which was very good. It was a good thing that happened. But a couple of days after maybe 2 days after, maybe that night, um, I there was a moment with my husband. I mean, we're on vacation. It's our anniversary. We were being intimate. Again, this is the TMI. I apologize, but during the intimacy, I felt a really actually, no, at the end, I felt that same feeling of something rising up within me, kind of like I felt in the bath when I was making myself spin, and I was like, "Oh," that feeling of like, "Am I gonna pass out?" Like something, it started really deep and it started to rise. That happened again after, like, during at the end of that experience with my husband of intimacy. And I remember just like stopping and being like, and I even said out loud, "Something's happening." And like this rising feeling. And I was like, "Am I going to pass out?" And again, it was tears. Like these tears are so intense that it literally makes me feel like I'm going to die, puke, pass out, something. So I had this like rising feeling again. I'm like, "Oh, something's happening." And then I just burst into tears again. And that time I really felt her crying from a place of, it wasn't so much grief this time. I was hearing her thoughts, and she was like crying from a place of being able to experience a divine union where a man was respecting her, was loving her, was worshiping her, was to her, she was like, oh, that's very different, right? And I think that that needed to be healed. Her relationship with the masculine, obviously, look what she went through. Look what her time, living back then would have been like for a woman. And so then to wake up inside of me and be like, "Oh, okay." So we're in 2023 and like the world's a different place and she's seeing it through my eyes and I see her trying to understand and comprehend everything that's going on. Who is she? Who am I? Why is she waking up within me? What is going on? And then to see this, love between me and my husband that was so beautiful, and she just burst out crying, and it was also like a release and a really healing thing. So that was like kind of like a really beautiful moment. Sad, but also very healing and very beautiful. And so if you have something like this happen, you will feel that feeling of having somebody else alive inside your body. It's so weird to hear their thoughts, to feel their emotions, to see them observing your life through your eyes. But it doesn't last. That is a phase at the very beginning when it's like your soul feels like it's in pieces. And then there's an integration period that happens, and um and it's nothing to be nervous about, because I remember trying to explain to Jura, that it's not always going to feel this weird to be inside of me. We are going to integrate. And then she had this fear of like, "Oh, I don't want to lose myself. Like, I just woke up. I don't want to lose this new awareness that I had." And I said, "No, no, no, don't worry. It's not like that at all. You and I are equal. I'm not like a dominant that's going to swallow you up and you won't exist anymore. That's actually not how it works. We're equal." And then we meld in, and each of us will feel more like ourselves because we become one than we did before. And so the truth is that with every single one of these soul retrievals, past life healings that I do, I feel more and more like myself. I'm gathering the pieces of myself. And so with each one of these, and I've described a lot of them here on YouTube, I reclaim pieces of my personality. I reclaim soul gifts. I reclaim my like character, personality, likes, dislikes, just me. Like it was missing. And it was like this empty spot, and it's back, and it's like adding more color and life force and vibrancy. And each version of me is so different. But in this case, Jura was like very independent, very, very like, she was like bright, bold and bright. She liked to be like, she laughed loudly. She danced without care about who was watching. She was very independent. She was just very like, didn't care what other people thought, and had a pretty big personality, more outgoing than probably what I would consider myself to be, and more just like loud, vibrant, like, yeah, just boisterous. And so it's interesting, and I don't know how that's going to affect me now as it integrates, but it does affect you. It does. It's like you become more yourself, and it's honestly so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and not a lot of people talk about soul retrievals, the after effects and the integration and what it feels like. So I really wanted to share that with you all. So, that's pretty much. Oh, the last thing, what I wanted to share, one more crystal. After all of that happened, I went into this crystal shop called Natural Wonders in the Tlaquepaque or Talapac. I don't know how to say it. There's like this Tlaquepaque, I think. Tlaquepaque, maybe? Anyway, it's like a shopping district in Sedona. And there was a store in there called Natural Wonders. And I asked the woman, because I have all the things, I was trying to heal my heart, right? I had just gone through this and I was still, it was like day 2. So I was still really in the grief of it. Um, and she was very sensitive and intuitive, and she could see something was up with me. And I was asking, like, how can I blow my heart chakra wide open? And she's like, whoa, like, because I have all the things, like I have the rose quartz and all the things that everybody already typically knows, but this shop had a lot of rare crystals. And she's like, why do you want to do that? What's going on with you? And I was like, well, I'm going through this past life, like soul retrieval, past life healing. It's feeling really heavy. I don't know how to move through it. I figure I just need to open my heart wider. And she's like, no, that's very like masculine of you to be like, let's push through. It's like, no, let's instead, let's ask not how we can blast our heart open, but how can we encourage the healing to keep going so that it doesn't stop and there's no stagnancy? How can we encourage the flow? I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. That's probably better. And again, this felt like divinely orchestrated, that this woman that just everything about the experience. She was so sweet. She had been through some stuff like that herself, and she recommended this crystal it's called Alestial quartz. And so that's this one here. So it has like a lot of interesting, let me see how I can, oh, there you go. It has like a lot of like triangular points built in. And it's got like almost like a smoky quartz color. So she hands this to me. Isn't that so cool looking? She hands this to me, and then I'm just holding it in my hand and we're talking. And this is the power of this. So if you are going through past life trauma, or she said, or it's good for even grief in this life. So it's for healing grief. Okay, that's the energy so for grief energy. She places this in my hand, and I'm like looking in her eyes and listening to her own stories. She was sharing a lot about her life. And the crystal started working on me so quickly, like almost immediately, within like a minute or 2 of holding it. I felt myself like tears like welling up in my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, girl, hold it together. Like, at least we get out of the store, what's happening? So that was a crystal that I also got in Sedona that was really, really powerful that I wanted to share. And then one final crystal. This one is called Vivianite, and I didn't know about it at all until Sedona. It's really funny because I have a past life in Avalon where I was called Vivienne, and this feels very like her energy. So Vivianite, it's this really beautiful greenish color. It looks like, oh, I can't think of the one that it looks like, stalactite or something like that. No, not stalactite. Okay, there's another one that looks like this. It's almost flaky, like flaky shards. So it's got like a deep green, greenish blue. And it has this, like, this is the rock. It almost looks like the shape of a bouquet of flowers if you were to give somebody a bouquet. Anyway, this one is a heart opener. So this is, a lot of green stones are, but this one is actually like deep, deep compassion. So the deepest, so really, really deep compassion frequency can help you to work on forgiveness. So these kind of go very well together. Grief, forgiveness, kind of perfect, right? So again, Alestial quartz and Vivianite. But what else this does is help you to work on oneness, because really deep compassion, like unconditional love and unconditional compassion, are oneness. The oneness frequency, that's like the highest frequency, right? So unity consciousness. And then the Alestial quartz, I said, is really good for helping you with grief and past lives. But if you look it up, it also says that it helps you to connect to other dimensions, which makes sense for past lives anyway, right? If this is like a doorway to other dimensions and timelines, and I'm trying to do past life healing, this pretty much is like the perfect stone for that. So anyway, Next week, I want to do some channeling about Cathedral Rock, which we didn't talk about. That was the one I was trying to get to the whole time, but obviously I need to do this as a part 2. I did get to Cathedral Rock, okay? I want to tell you all about it. I want to tell you what we found there that no one talks about. It's so weird. I want to do some channeling about the ancient history of Cathedral Rock for you. I actually have some stones that we took from there that I'm going to hold on to and channel the information for you. There's also a mountain there called Pyramid Rock, which also had amazing energy. So I might do Cathedral Rock and Pyramid Rock in the next video. So a little bit more to come about Sedona, but I wanted to share this personal story first. So thank you so much if you're still here at the end of the video. I look forward to reading your comments about your own experiences, potentially with places that you feel called to, soul retrievals that you have experienced, specifically around the stuff that no one talks about, right? Like about the feeling of having this new consciousness person inside of your body that you're trying to know. You feel like two people, like extra person is in there, and it's just so weird because they don't feel like you yet. So there's a lot of strange things before the integration can happen. So anyway, thank you so much. I love you all so much. Please check out the link in the description for the Starseed Academy membership for the amazing events that are happening this month. Also, make sure that you're following me on Instagram. Check out the Sedona highlights for lots of details about Sedona. And also I just do like my stories, or if you're looking for like more of an insider's view, like behind the scenes, personal, I do a lot more of that on Instagram. I just find stories are a good place for that for some reason. So I tend to show up more as like, not so much Starseed Academy, and more as Jenny in my stories on Instagram. So if you're wanting to kind of get that insider's view, then come follow me there. And then don't forget to please like this video and share it, and subscribe for new videos every Sunday. And before you go, please remember, listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. I love you, beautiful starseeds. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.